The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, Part 3. He is hitting the wild leader with his spear, he thought. That was bound to come. He had to do that. It may make him jump though, and he would rather he stay circling now. The jumps were necessary for him to take air. But after that, each one can widen the opening of the hook wound, and he can throw the hook. Don't jump, fish, he said. Don't jump. The fish hit the wire several times more, and each time he shook his head, the old man gave up a little line. I must hold his pain where it is, he thought. Mine does not matter. I can control mine, but his pain could drive him mad. After a while, the fish stopped beating at the wire and started circling slowly again. The old man was gaining light steadily now, but he felt faint again. He lifted some seawater with his left hand and put it on his head. Then he put more on and rubbed the back of his neck. I have no cramps, he said. He'll be up soon, and I can last. You have to last. Don't even speak of it. He kneeled against the bowl and for a moment slipped the line over his back again. I'll rest now while he goes out on the circle, and then stand up and work on him when he comes in, he decided. It was a great temptation to rest in a boat and let the fish make one circle by himself without recovering any line. But when the strange shoulder the fish had turned to come toward the boat, the old man rose to his feet and started the pivoting and the weaving pulling that brought in all the line he gained. I'm tighter than I have ever been, he thought, and now the trade wind is rising, but that will be good to take him in with. I need that badly. I'll rest on the next turn as he go out, he said. I feel much better. Then in 2 or 3 turns more, I will have him. His straw hat was far on the back of his head, and he sank down into the bowl with the pull of the line as he felt the fish turn. You work now, fish, he thought. I'll take you at the turn. The sea had risen considerably, but it was a fair weather breeze, and he had to have it to get home. I just steer south and west, he said. A man is never lost at sea, and it is a long island. It was on the 3rd turn that he saw the fish first. He saw him first as a dark shadow that took so long to pass under the boat that he could not believe its length. No, he said, he can't be that big. But he was that big, and at the end of this circle he came to a surface only 30 yards away, and the man saw his tail out of water. It was higher than a big side blade, and a very pale lavender above the dark blue water. It racked back, and as the fish swarmed just below the surface, the old man could see his huge bulk and the purple stripe that banded him. His dorsal fin was down, and his huge pectorals were spread wide. On this circle, the old man could see the fish eye and the 2 great sucking fish that swam around him. Sometimes they attached themselves to him. Sometimes they darted off. Sometimes they would swim easily in his shadow, and they were each over 3 feet long, and when they swam fast, they lashed their whole bodies like eels. The old man was sweating now, but from something else besides the sun. On each calm, placid turn, the fish made he was gaining line, and he was sure that in 2 turns more he would have a chance to get the harpoon in. But I must get him close, 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 he thought. I mustn't try for the head. I must get the heart. Be calm and strong, old man, he said. On the next circle, the fish back was out, but he was a little too far from the boat. On the next circle, he was still too far away, but he was higher out of the water, and the old man was sure that by gaining some more light, he could have him alongside. He had rigged his harpoon long before, and its coil of light rope was in a round basket, and the end was made fast to the bit in the bow. The fish was coming in on his circle now, calm and beautiful looking, and only his great tail moving. The old man pulled on him all that he could to bring him closer. For just a moment the fish turned a little on his side. Then he straightened himself and began another circle. I moved him, the old man said. I moved him then. He felt faint again now, but he held on the great fish all the strength that he could. I moved him, he thought. Maybe this time I can get him over. Pull, hands, he thought. Hold up, legs. Last for me, head. Last for me, you never went. This time I'll pull him over. The fish pulled part way over and then righted himself and swam away. Fish, the old man said, fish, you are going to have to die anyway. Do you have to kill me too? That way, nothing is accomplished, he thought. His mouth was too dry to speak, but he could not reach for the water now. I must get him alongside this time, he thought. I'm not good for many more turns. Yes, you are, he told himself. You're good forever. On the next turn, he nearly had him, but again the fish righted himself and swam slowly away. You are killing me, fish, the old man thought. But you have a right to. Never have I seen a greater or more beautiful or a calmer or more noble thing than you, brother. Come on and kill me. I do not care who kills who. Now you're getting confused in the head, he thought. You must keep your head clear. Keep your head clear and know how to suffer like a man or a fish, he thought. Clear up head, he said in a voice he could hardly hear. Clear up. Twice more it was the same on the turns. I do not know, the old man thought. He had been on the point of feeling himself go each time. I do not know, but I will try it once more. He tried it once more, and he felt himself going when he turned the fish. The fish righted himself and swam off again slowly with the great tail weaving in the air. I'll try it again, the old man promised, although his hands were mushy now, and he could only see well in flashes. He tried it again, and it was the same, so he thought. And he felt himself going before he started. I will try it once again. He took all his pain and what was left of his strength and his long-gone pride, and he put it against the fish's agony. And the fish came over onto his side and swam gently on his side, his bill almost touching the planking of the skiff, and started to pass the boat, long, deep, wide, silver, and barred with purples and interminable in the water. The old man dropped the line and put his foot on it and lifted the harpoon as high as he could and drove it down with all of his strength. And more strength he had just summoned into the fish side just behind the great chest fin that rose high in the air to the altitude of the man's chest. He felt the iron go in, and he leaned on it and drove it further and then pushed on his weight after it. Then the fish came alive with his death in him and rose high out of the water, showing all his great length and width and all his power and his beauty. He seems to hang in the air above the old man in the skiff. Then he fell into the water with a crash that sent spray over the old man and over all of the skiff. The old man fell faint and sick, and he could not see well, but he cleared the harpoon line and let it run slowly through his raw hands, and when he could see, he saw the fish was on his back with his silver belly up. The shaft of the harpoon was projecting at an angle from the fish's shoulder, and the sea was discoloring with the red of the blood from his heart. First, it was dark as a shoal in the blue water that was more than a mile deep. Then it spread like a cloud. The fish was silvery and still and flooded with the wave. The old man looked carefully in the glimpse of vision that he had. Then he took 2 turns of the harpoon line around the bit in the bow and laid his head on his hands. "Keep my head clear," he said against the wood of the bow. "I'm tired, old man, but I have killed this fish, which is my brother, and now I must do the slave work. Now I must prepare the nooses and the rope to lash him alongside," he thought. "Even if we were two and swam her to load him and bail her out, this skiff would never hold him. I must prepare everything, then bring him in and lash him well and step the mast and set sail for home." He started to pull the fish in to have him alongside so that he could pass a line through his gills and out his mouth and make his head fast alongside the bow. "I want to see him," he thought, "and to touch and to feel him. He is my fortune," he thought, "but that is not why I wish to feel him. I think I felt his heart," he thought. "When I put on the harpoon shaft the second time, bring him in now and make him fast and get the noose around his tail and another around his middle to bind him to the skiff." "Get to work, old man," he said. He took a very small drink of the water. "There is very much slave work to be done now that the fight is over." He looked up at the sky and then out to his fish. He looked at the sun carefully. "It is not much more than noon," he thought, "and the trade wind is rising. The lines all mean nothing now. The boy and I will splice them when we are home. Come on, fish," he said. But the fish did not come. Instead, he lay there wallowing now in the seas, and the old man pulled the skiff up onto him. When he was even with him and had the fish head against the bow, he could not believe his sight. But he untied the harpoon rope from the bit, passed it through the fish gills and out his jaws, made a turn around his sword, then passed the rope through the other gill, made another turn around the bill and knotted the double rope and make it fast to the bit in the bow. He cut the rope then and went astern to noose the tail. The fish has turned silver from his original purple and silver, and the stripes showed the same pale violet color as his tail. They were wider than a man's hand with his fingers spread, and the fish's eye looked as detached as the mirrors in a periscope or as a saint in the procession. It was the only way to kill him, the old man said. He was feeling better since the water, and he knew he would not go away, and his head was clear. "He's over 1,500 pounds the way he is," he thought, "maybe much more. If he dresses out 2/3 of that at 30 cents a pound. I need a pencil for that," he said. "My head is not that clear, but I think the great DiMaggio would be proud of me today. I had no bone spurs, but my hands and my back hurt truly. I wonder what a bone spur is," he thought. "Maybe we have them without knowing of it." He made the fish fast to bow and stern and to the middle thwart. He was so big it was like lashing a much bigger skiff alongside. He cut a piece of line and tied the fish's lower jaw against his bill so his mouth would not open and they would sail as cleanly as possible. Then he stepped the mast, and with the stick that was his gaff, and with his boom rigged, the patched sail drew, the boat began to move, and half lying in the stern he sailed southwest. He did not need a compass to tell him where southwest were. He only needed the feel of the trade wind and the drawing of the sail. "I better put a small line out with a spoon on it and try to get something to eat and drink for the moisture." But he could not find a spoon, and his sardines were rotten. So he hooked a patch of yellow gufweed with a gaff as they passed and shook it so that the small shrimp that were in it fell onto the planking of the skiff. There were more than a dozen of them, and they jumped and kicked like a sand fleas. The old man pinched their heads off with his thumb and forefinger and ate them, chewing off the shells and the tails. They were very tiny, but he knew they were nourishing and they tasted good. The old man still had 2 drinks of water in the bottle, and he used half of one after he had eaten the shrimps. The skiff was sailing well considering the handicaps, and he steered with the tiller under his arm. He could see the fish, and he had only to look at his hands and feel his back against the stern to know that this had truly happened and was not a dream. At one time, when he was feeling so badly toward the end, he had thought perhaps it was a dream. Then, when he had seen the fish come out of the water and hang motionless in the sky before he fell, he was sure there was some great strangeness, and he could not believe it. Then he could not see well, although now he saw as well as ever. Now he knew there was the fish, and his hands and back were no dream. The hands cooled quickly, he thought. I bled them clean, and the salt water will heal them. The dark water of the true Gulf is the greatest healer that there is. All I must do is keep the head clear. The hands have done their work, and we sail well. With his mouth shut and his tail straight up and down, we sail like brothers. Then his head started to become a little unclear, and he thought, is he bringing me in, or am I bringing him in? If I were towing him behind, there would be no question. Nor if the fish were in the skiff, with all dignity gone, there would be no question either. But they were sailing together, lasted side by side, and the old man thought, let him bring me in, if it pleased him. I'm only better than him through trickery, and he meant me no harm. They sailed well, and the old man soaked his hands in the salt water and tried to keep his head clear. There were high cumulus clouds and enough cirrus above them so that the old man knew the breeze would last all night. The old man looked at the fish constantly to make sure it was true. It was an hour before the first shark hit him. The shark was not an accident. He had come up from deep down in the water as the dark cloud of blood had settled and dispersed in the mild deep sea. He had come up so fast and absolutely without caution that he broke the surface of the blue water and was in the sun. Then he fell back into the sea and picked up the sand and started swimming on the course of the skiff, and the fish had taken. Sometimes he lost the scent, but he would pick it up again, or have just a trace of it, and he swam fast and hard on the coast. He was a very big mackerel shark, built to swim as fast as the fastest fish in the sea, and everything about him was beautiful except his jaws. His back was as blue as a swordfish, and his belly was silver, and his hide was smooth and handsome. He was built as a swordfish, except for his huge jaws, which were tied shut now as he swam fast. Just under the surface, with his hind dorsal fin knifing through the water without wavering. Inside the closed double lip of his jaws, all of his 8 rows of teeth were slanted inward. They were not the ordinary pyramid-shaped teeth of most sharks. They were shaped like a man's fingers when they are crisped like claws. They were nearly as long as the fingers of the old man, and they had razor-sharp cutting edges on both sides. This was a fish built to feed on all the fishes in the sea that were so fast and strong and well-armed that they had no other enemy. Now he speeded up as he smelled the freshest sand, and his blue dorsal fin cut the water. When the old man saw him coming, he knew that this was a shark that had no fear at all and would do exactly what he wished. He prepared the harpoon and made the rope fast while he watched the shark come on. The rope was short, as it lacked what he had cut away to lash the fish. The old man's head was clear and good now, and he was full of resolution, but he had little hope. It was too good to last, he thought. He took one look at the great fish as he watched the shark close in. It might as well have been a dream, he thought. I cannot keep him from hitting me, but maybe I can get him. Then do so, he thought. Bad luck to your mother. The shark closed fast a turn, and when he hit the fish, the old man saw his mouth open and his strange eyes and the clicking chop of the teeth as he drove forward in the meat just above the tail. The shark's head was out of water and his back was coming out, and the old man could hear the noise of skin and flesh ripping on the big fish when he rammed the harpoon down onto the shark's head at the spot where the line between his eyes intersected with the line that ran straight back from his nose. There was no shut lines. There was only the heavy, sharp blue head and the big eyes and the clicking, thirsting, all-swallowing jaws. But that was the location of the brain, and the old man hit it. He hit it with his blood-moist hands, driving a good harpoon with all his strength. He hit it with a hope, but with resolution and complete malignancy. The shark swung over, and the old man saw his eye was not alive, and then he swung over once again, wrapping himself into loops of the rope. The old man knew that he was dead, but the shark would not accept it. Then on his back, with his tail lashing and his jaws clicking, the shark plowed over the water as the speedboat does. The water was white where his tail beat it, and 3/4 of his body was clear above the water when the rope came taut, silvered, and then snapped. The shark lay quietly for a little while on the surface, and the old man watched him. Then he went down very slowly. He took about 40 pounds, the old man said aloud. He took my harpoon too, and all the rope, he thought, and now my fish bleeds again and there will be others. He did not like to look at the fish anymore since he had been mutilated. When the fish had been hit, it was as though he himself were hit. But I killed the shark that hit my fish, he thought, and he was the biggest dentuso that I have ever seen, and God knows that I have seen big ones. It was too good to last, he thought. I wish it had been a dream now, and that I had never hooked the fish and was alone in bed on the newspapers. But man is not made for defeat, he said. A man can be destroyed but not defeated. I'm sorry that I killed the fish though, he thought. Now the bad time is coming and I do not even have the harpoon. The dentuso is cruel and able and strong and intelligent, but I was more intelligent than he was. Perhaps not, he thought. Perhaps I was only better armed. Don't think, old man, he said aloud. Sail on this course and take it when it comes. But I must think, he thought, because it is all I have left. That and baseball. I wonder how the great DiMaggio would have liked the way I hit him in the brain. It was no great thing, he thought. Any man could do it. But do you think my hand were a great handicap as the bone spurs? I cannot know. I never had anything wrong with my heel, except the time the stingray stung it when I stepped on him when swimming and paralyzed the lower leg and made the unbearable pain. Think about something cheerful, old man, he said. Every minute now you are closer to home. You sail lighter for the loss of 40 pounds. He knew quite well the pattern of what could happen when he reached the inner part of the current. But there were nothing to be done now. Yes, there is, he said aloud. I can lash my knife to the butt of one of the oars. So he did that with the tiller under his arm and the sheet of the sail under his foot. Now, he said, I'm still an old man, but I'm not unarmed. The breeze was fresh now, and he sailed on well. He watched only the forward part of the fish, and some of his hope returned. It is silly not to hope, he thought. Besides, I believe it is a sin. Do not think about sin, he thought. There are enough problems now without sin. Also, I have no understanding of it. I have no understanding of it, and I'm not sure that I believe in it. Perhaps it was a sin to kill the fish. I suppose it was, even though I did it to keep me alive and feed the many people. But then everything is a sin. I do not think about sin. It is much too late for that, and there are people who are paid to do it. Let them think about it. You were born to be a fisherman, as the fish were born to be a fish. San Pedro was a fisherman, as was the father of the great DiMaggio. But I like to think about all things that he was involved in, and since there was nothing to read, and he did not have a radio, he thought much, and he kept on thinking about sin. You did not kill the fish only to keep alive and to sell for food, he thought. You killed him for pride, and because you are a fisherman. You loved him when he was alive, and you loved him after. If you love him, it is not a sin to kill him, or is it more? You think too much, old man, he said aloud. But you enjoy killing the lentuso, he thought. He lives on the live fish, as you do. He is not a scavenger, nor just a moving appetite, as some sharks are. He is beautiful and noble, and knows no fear of anything. I killed him in self-defense, the old man said aloud, and I killed him well. Besides, he thought, everything kills everything else in some way. Fishing kills me exactly as it keeps me alive. The boy keeps me alive, he thought. I must not deceive myself too much. He leaned over the side and pulled loose a piece of the meat of the fish where the shark had cut him. He chewed it and noted its quality and its good taste. It was firm and juicy like meat, but it was not red. There was no stringiness in it, and he knew that it would bring the highest price in the market. But there was no way to keep its scent out of the water, and the old man knew that a very bad time was coming. The breeze was steady. It had backed a little further into the northeast, and he knew that meant that it would not fall off. The old man looked ahead of him, but he could see no sails, nor could he see the hull nor the smoke of any ship. There were only the flying fish that went up from his boat, sailing away to either side, and the yellow patches of gulfweed. He could not even see a bird. He had sailed for 2 hours, resting in the stern and sometimes chewing a bit of the meat from the marlin, trying to rest and to be strong, when he saw the first of the 2 sharks. "Aye," he said aloud, "there is no translation for this word, and perhaps it is just a noise such as a man might make, involuntarily, feeling the nail go through his hands and into the wood." "Galanos," he said aloud. He had seen the second fin now coming up behind the first, and had identified them as the silver-nosed sharks by the broad, triangular fin and the sweeping movements of the tail. They had the scent and were excited, and in the stupidity of their great hunger they were losing and finding the scent in their excitement, but they were closing all the time. The old man made the sheet fast and jammed the tiller. Then he took up the oar with a knife lashed to it. He lifted it as lightly as he could because his hands rebelled at the pain. Then he opened and closed them on it slightly to loosen them. He closed them firmly so they would take the pain now and would not flinch and watch the sharks come. He could see their wide, flattened, shower-pointed heads now and their wide pectoral fins. They were hateful sharks, bad-smelling, scavengers as well as killers. And when they were hungry, they would bite at an oar or the rudder of a boat. It was these sharks that could cut the turtle legs and flip it off when the turtles were asleep on the surface, and they would hit a man in the water if they were hungry, even if the man had no smell of fish blood nor of fish slime on him. "Aye," the old man said, "Galanos, come on, Galanos." They came, but they did not come as the Marco had come. One turned and went out of sight under the skiff, and the old man could feel the skiff shake as he jerked and pulled on the fish. The other watched the old man with his slitted yellow eyes, and then came in fast with his half circle of jaws wide to hit the fish where he had already been bitten. The line showed clearly on the top of his brown head and back, where the brain joined to the spinal cord, and the old man drove the knife on the oar into the junctures, withdrew it, and drove it in again into the shark's yellow cat-like eyes. The shark let go of the fish and slid down, swallowing what he had taken as he died. The skiff was still shaking with the destruction the other shark was doing to the fish, and the old man let go the sheet so that the skiff would swing broadside and bring the shark out from under. When he saw the shark, he leaned over the side and punched at him. He hit only meat, and the hide was set hard, and he barely got the knife in. The blow hurt not only his hands but his shoulder too. But the shark came up fast with his head out, and the old man hit him squarely in the center of his flat-topped head. As his nose came out of water and lay against the fish, the old man withdrew the blade and punched the shark exactly in the same spot again. He still hung to the fish with his jaws hooked, and the old man stabbed him in his left eye. The shark had still hung there. "No," the old man said, and he drove the blade between the vertebrae and the brain. It was an easy shot now, and he felt the cartilage sever. The old man reserved the oar and put the blade between the shark's jaws to open them. He twisted the blade, and as the shark slid loose, he said, "Go on, Galano, slide down a mile deep. Go see your friend, or maybe it's your mother." The old man wiped the blade of his knife and let down the oar. Then he found the sheet and the sail-field, and he brought the skiff onto her course. They must have taken a quarter of him, and then he found the sheet, he said, and the sail-field, and he brought the skiff onto her course. "And I had never hooked him. I'm sorry about it, fish. It makes everything wrong." He stopped, and he did not want to look at the fish now. Drained of blood and awash, he looked at the color of the silver backing of the mirror, and his pride still showed. "I shouldn't have gone out so far, fish," he said. "Neither for you nor for me. I'm sorry, fish." Now, he said to himself, "Look to the lashing on the knife and see if it has been cut. Then get your hand in order, because there still is more to come." "I wish I had a stone for the knife," the old man said after he had checked the lashing on the oar, "but I should have brought a stone." "You should have brought many things," he thought, "but you did not bring them, old man. Now is no time to think of what you do not have. Think of what you can do with what there is." "You give me much good counsel," he said aloud. "I'm tired of it." He held the tiller under his arm and soaked both his hands in the water as the skiff rolled forward. "God knows how much that last one took," he said, "but she's much lighter now." He did not want to think of the mutilated undersides of the fish. He knew that each of the jerking bumps of the shark had been meat torn away, and that the fish now made a trail for old sharks as wide as the highway through the sea. He was a fish to keep a man all winter, he thought. Don't think of that. Just rest and try to get your hands in shape to defend what is left of him. The blood smell from my hands means nothing now, with all that stands in the water. Besides, they do not bleed much. There is nothing cut that means anything. The bleeding may keep the leg from cramping. What can I think of now? He thought. Nothing. I must think of nothing and wait for the next ones. I wish it had really been a dream, he thought. But who knows? It might have turned out well. The next shark that came was a single shovel nose. He came like a pig to the trough. If a pig had a mouth so wide that you could put your head in it. The old man let him hit the fish and then drove the knife on the oar down into his brain. But the shark jerked backwards as he rolled, and the knife blade snapped. The old man settled himself to steer. He did not even watch the big shark sinking slowly in the water, showing first life size, then small, then tiny. That always fascinated the old man, but he did not even watch it now. I have a gaff now, he said, but it will do no good. I have the 2 oars and the tiller and the shark club. Now they have beaten me, he thought. I'm too old to club sharks to death, but I will try it as long as I have the oars and the shark club and the tiller. He put his hands in the water again to soak them. It was getting late in the afternoon and he saw nothing but the sea and the sky. There was more wind in the sky than there had been, and soon he hoped that he would see land. You're tired, old man, he said. You're tired inside. The sharks did not hit him again until just before sunset. The old man saw the brown fins coming along the wide trail the fish must make in the water. They were not even quartering on the sand. They were headed straight for the skiff swimming side by side. He jammed the tiller, made the sheet fast, and reached under the stern for the club. It was an oar handle from the broken oar saw off to about 2.5 feet in length. He could only use it effectively with one hand because of the grip of the handle, and he took good hold of it with his right hand, flexing his hand on it as he watched the sharks come. They were both laganos. I must let the first one get a good hold and hit him on the point of the nose or straight across the top of the head, he thought. The 2 sharks closed together, and as he saw the one nearest him open his jaws and sink them into the silver sides of the fish, he raised the club high and brought it down heavy and slamming onto the top of the shark's broad head. He felt the rubbery solidity as the club came down, but he felt the rigidity of bone too, and he struck the shark once more hard across the point of the nose as he slid down from the fish. The other shark had been in and out and now came in again with his jaws wide. The old man could see pieces of the meat of the fish spilling white from the corner of his jaws as he pumped the fish and closed his jaws. He swung at him and hit only the head, and the shark looked at him and wrenched the meat loose. The old man swung the club down on him again as he slipped away to swallow and hit only the heavy solid rubberiness. Come on, Galano, the old man said. Come in again. The shark came in a rush, and the old man hit him as he shut his jaws. He hit him solidly, and from as high up as he could raise the club. This time he felt the bone at the base of the brain, and he hit him again in the same place, while the shark tore the meat loose sluggishly and slid down from the fish. The old man watched for him to come again, but neither shark shows. Then he saw one of the surface swimming in circles. He did not see the fin of the other. I could not expect to kill them, he thought, but I could have in my time. but I have hurt them both badly and neither one can feel very good. If I could have used the bat with 2 hands, I could have killed the first one surely. Even now, he thought. He did not want to look at the fish. He knew that half of him had been destroyed. The sun had gone down while he had been in the fight with the sharks. It will be dark soon, he said. Then I should see the glow of Havana. If I'm too far to the eastward, I will see the lights of one of the new beaches. I cannot be too far out now, he thought. I hope no one has been too worried. There is only the boy to worry, of course, but I'm sure he would have confidence. Many of the older fishermen will worry. Many others too, he thought. I live in a good town. He could not talk to the fish anymore because the fish has been ruined too badly. Then something came into his head. Half fish, he said. Fish that you were. I'm sorry that I went too far out. I ruined us both, but I have killed many sharks, you and ruined many others. How many did you ever kill on fish? You do not have that spear on your head for nothing. I like to think of the fish and what he could do to a shark if he were swimming free. I should have chopped the bill off to fight with them, he thought. But there was no hatchet, and then there was no knife. But if I had, I could have lashed it to an oar butt. What a weapon! Then we might have fought them together. What will you do now if they come in the night? What can you do? Fight them, he said. I'll fight them until I die. But in the dark now, and no glow showing, and no lights, and only the wind and the steady pull of the sail, he felt that perhaps he was already dead. He put his 2 hands together and felt the palms. They were not dead, and he could bring the pain of life by simply opening and closing them. He leaned his back against the stone and knew he was not dead. His shoulders told him, I have all those prayers I promised if I caught the fish, he thought. But I am too tired to say them now. I better get the sack and put it over my shoulders. He lay in the stone and stared and watched for the glow to come in the sky. I have half of him, he thought. Maybe I'll have the luck to bring the forward half in. I should have some luck. No, he said. You violated your luck when you went too far outside. Don't be silly, he said aloud, and keep awake and steer. You may have much luck yet. I'd like to buy some if there's any place they sell it, he said. What could I buy it with? He asked himself. Could I buy it with a lost harpoon and a broken knife and 2 bad hands? You might, he said. You tried to buy it with 84 days at sea. They nearly sold it to you too. I must not think nonsense, he thought. Luck is the thing that comes in many forms, and who can recognize her? I would take some though in any form and pay what they asked. I wish I could see the glow from the lights, he thought. I wish too many things, but that is the thing I wish for now. He tried to settle more comfortably to steer, and from his pain he knew he was not dead. He saw the reflected glare of the lights of the city at what must have been around 10 o'clock at night. They were only perceptible at first, as the light is in the sky before the moon rises. Then they were steady to see across the ocean, which was rough now with the increasing breeze. He steered inside of the glow, and he thought that now, soon, he must hit the edge of the stream. Now it is over, he thought. They will probably hit me again. But what can a man do against them in the dark without a weapon? He was stiff and sore now, and his wounds and all of the strange parts of his body hurt with the cold of the night. I hope I do not have to fight again, he thought. I hope so much I do not have to fight again. But by midnight he fought, and this time he knew the fight was useless. They came in a pack, and he could only see the lines in the water that their fins made and their phosphorescence as they threw themselves on the fish. He clutched at heads and heard a jaw chop and the shaking of the skiff as they took hold below. He clutched desperately at what he could only feel and hear, and he felt something seize the club, and it was gone. He jerked the tiller free from the rudder and beat and chopped with it, holding in it both hands and driving it down again and again. But they were up to the bow now, and driving in one after the other and together, tearing off the pieces of meat that showed glowing below the sea as they turned to come once more. One came, finally, against the head itself, and he knew that it was over. He swung the tiller across the shark's head, where the jaws were caught in the heaviness of the fish head which would not tear. He swung it once and twice and again. He heard the tiller break, and he lunged at the shark with the splintered butt. He felt it go in, and knowing it was sharp to drove it in again. The shark let go and rolled away. That was the last shark of the pack that came. There was nothing more for them to eat. The old man could hardly breathe now, and he felt a strange taste in his mouth. It was coppery and sweet, and he was afraid of it for a moment. But there was not much of it. He spat into the ocean and said, "Eat that, Galano, and make a dream you've killed a man." He knew he was beaten now finally, and without remedy, and he went back to the stern and found the jagged end of the tiller wood fit in the slot of the rudder well enough for him to steer. He saddled the sack around his shoulders and put the skiff on her course. He sailed lightly now, and he had no thoughts nor any feelings of any kind. He was past everything now, and he sailed the skiff to make his home port as well and as intelligently as he could. In the night, sharks hit the carcass as someone might pick up crumbs from the table. The old man paid no attention to them and did not pay any attention to anything except steering. He only noticed how lightly and how well the skiff sailed now. There was no great weight beside her. "She's good," he thought. "She is sound and not harmed in any way except for the tiller. That is easily replaced." He could feel he was inside the current now, and he could see the lights of the beach colony along the shore. He knew where he was now, and it was nothing to get home. The wind is our friend anyway, he thought. Then he added sometimes, and the Red Sea with our friends and our enemies. And bad, he thought. Bad, my friend, just bad, he thought. Bad will be a great thing. It is easy when you are bitten, he thought. I never knew how easy it was. And what beats you, he thought. Nothing, he said aloud. I went out too far. When he sailed into the little harbor, the lights of the terrace were out, and he knew everyone was in bed. The breeze had risen steadily and was blowing strongly now. It was quiet in the harbor though, and he sailed up onto a little patch of shingle below the rocks. There was no one to help him, so he pulled the boat up so far as he could. Then he stepped out and made her fast to a rock. He unstepped the mast and furled the sail and tied it. Then he shouldered the mast and started to climb. It was then he knew the depth of his tiredness. He stopped for a moment and looked back and saw in the reflection of the streetlight the great tail of the fish standing up well behind the skiff stern. He saw the white naked line of his backbone and the dark mass of the head with the projecting bill and on the nakedness between. He started to climb again, and at the top he fell and lay for some time with the mast across his shoulders. He tried to get up, but it was too difficult, and he sat there with the mast on his shoulders and looked at the road. A cat passed on the far side going about its business, and the old man watched it. Then he just watched the road. Finally, he put the mask down and stood up. He picked the mask up and put it on his shoulders and started up the road. He had to sit down 5 times before he reached his shack. Inside the shack, he leaned the mask against the wall. In the dark, he found a water bottle and took a drink. Then he lay down on the bed. He pulled the blanket over his shoulders and then over his back and legs, and he slept face down on the newspapers with his arms outstretched in the palms of his hands up. He was asleep when the boy looked in the door in the morning. It was blowing so hard that the drifting boat would not be going out, and the boy had slept late and then come to the old man's shack as he had come each morning. The boy saw that the old man was breathing, and he saw the old man's hand, and he started to cry. He went out very quietly to go to bring some coffee, and on the way down the road he was crying. Many fishermen were around the skiff, looking at what was last behind it, and one was in the water. His trousers rolled up, measuring the skeleton with the length of line. The boy did not go down. He had been there before, and one of the fishermen were looking after the skiff for him. "How is he?" One of the fishermen shouted. "Sleeping," the boy called. He did not care what they saw him crying. Let no one disturb him. He was 18 feet from nose to tail. The fisherman who was measuring him called. "I believe it," the boy said. He went into the terrace and asked for a can of coffee, hot and with plenty of milk and sugar in it. "Anything more?" "No, afterward I will see what he can eat." What a fish it was, the proprietor said. "There has never been such a fish." "Those were 2 fine fish you took yesterday too." "Damn my fish," the boy said, and he started to cry again. "Do you want to drink of any kind?" the proprietor asked. "No," the boy said. "Tell them not to bother Santiago. I'll be back." "Tell him how sorry I am." "Thanks," the boy said. The boy carried the hot can of coffee up to the old man's shack and sat by him until he woke. Once it looked as though he were waking, but he had gone back into heavy sleep, and the boy had gone across the road to borrow some wood to heat the coffee. Finally, the old man woke. "Don't sit up," the boy said. "Drink this." He poured some of the coffee in a glass. The man took it and drank it. "They beat me, Manolin," he said. "They truly beat me." "He didn't beat you, not the fish." "No, truly. It was afterwards." Pedrico is looking after the skiff and the gear. "What do you want done with the head?" "Let Pedrico chop it up to use in fish traps." "And the spear?" "You keep it if you want it." "I want it," the boy said. "Now we must make our plans about the other things." "Did they search for me?" "Of course. With Coast Guard and with planes." "The ocean is very big, and a skiff is small and hard to see," the old man said. He noticed how pleasant it was to have someone to talk to, instead of speaking only to himself and to the sea. "I missed you," he said. "What did you catch?" "1 the first day, 1 the second, and 2 the third." "Very good. Now we fish together again." "No, I'm not lucky. I'm not lucky anymore." "The hell with luck," the boy said. "I'll bring the luck with me." "What will your family say?" "I do not care. I caught 2 yesterday, but we will fish together now, for I still have much to learn. We must get a good killing lens and always have it on board. You can make the blade from the spring leaf from an old fort. We can grind it in Guanabacoa. It should be sharp and not tempered so it will break. My knife broke. I'll get another knife and have the spring ground. How many days of heavy brisa have we?" "Maybe 3. maybe more. I will have everything in order, the boy said. You get your hands well, old man. I know how to care for them. In the night, I spat something strange and felt something in my chest was broken. Get that well too, the boy said. Lie down, old man, and I will bring you your clean shirt and something to eat. Bring any of the papers of the time that I was gone, the old man said. You must get well fast, for there is much that I can learn, and you can teach me everything. How much did you suffer? Plenty, the old man said. I'll bring the food and the papers, the boy said. Rest well, old man. I will bring stuff from the drugstore for your hands. Don't forget to tell Patrico the hat is his. No, I will remember. As the boy went out the door and down the worn Coral Rock Road, he was crying again. That afternoon there was a party of tourists at the terrace, and looking down in the water among the empty beer cans and dead barracudas, a woman saw a great long white spy with a huge tail at the end that lifted and swung with the tide, while the east wind blew a heavy steady sea outside the entrance to the harbor. What's that? She asked the waiter and pointed to the long backbone of the great fish that was now just garbage waiting to go out with the tide. Tiburon, the waiter said, a shark. He was meaning to explain what had happened. I didn't know sharks had such handsome, beautiful formed tails. I didn't either, her male companion said. Up the road in his shack, the old man was sleeping again. He was still sleeping on his face, and the boy was sitting by him watching him. The old man was dreaming about the lions.